right, guys. Hey, cheers.
Cheers.
Here we are.
Cheers.
My coffee.
You got your coffee? Yeah, that's
I'm
the
good to
Cathouse
go.
coffee.
Yes.
So what blend of Cathouse coffee is this?
Well, we have two blends. One is a dark roast, and this is a medium roast. And I don't know why I hesitate every time that I say this, because I hate pumpkin spice and all that stuff. But it's got some I call it pumpkin, P-U-N-K apostrophe N. And it's got a little pumpkin flavoring, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of secret stuff. But it's a medium roast, 100% Arabica, specialty coffee. And I hate flavored coffees. But it's, I mean, I know I sound like I'm just plugging my coffee, but it's so good. I love it. And I only come out with this for like 2 months. Mm-hmm. And I tried to come out with the Christmas blend last year, and I was like, God, this is horrible. And then I just stopped.
What goes into a Christmas blend?
It wasn't like I didn't put cinnamon or any kind of like candy cane. It was just I was experimenting with different blends of a different medium roast that I just didn't like. And I called it Ho. Like ho, ho, ho. I just called it Ho. So it's kind of fun because every idea, whether it's good or bad, just sit here and like, what if I do this? What if I do that?
Right, yeah.
And now, it's horrible to admit this, but with AI, I just sit there and I say, I want a black cat drinking a cup of coffee next to Eddie from Iron Maiden. I can come up with anything I want. And I hate it because it's so wrong, but it's also quick and cheap.
Yeah, it's a tool. If you use it as a tool, it's great, right? Because you are coming up with the idea and the concept and everything, and you need that little bit of a help. So you're doing
I hate
everything.
the whole thing. I hate all the AI stuff. Scares like. I'm working on a project right now, and I'm like, let me get writing. They're like, just throw some stuff into Chat GPT. I'm like, no, I'm not. Oh, that's what people are writing books on Chat GPT. I'm like, that's not writing a book. No. Nobody's going to speak the way I speak. You know, it's not a Wikipedia. You know, you've seen my One Foot in the Gutter show, and I talk a lot of stuff is like with emotion. And I can't put that on Chat GPT. I'm coming out with a shirt. This isn't a plug because I can't really talk about it. I'm coming out with a shirt soon. It's a collaboration with my favorite band, and I can't do it AI. So I hired an artist because it's got to be just like, look at this cool shirt. And but I don't like the whole AI thing. But that's an old guy talking. Like that's old guy stuff.
But it's not old guy stuff. It's the way it should be. Like, all right, we're all old guys.
Yeah,
but I remember
I'm an old guy stuff too.
I do a lot of get off my lawn lately, a lot of it, and that's one where I do have a stick up my ass about the AIs because just like you said, it's a cheat code, and you're not an artist if you use that. You know, your wife's as a tattoo artist,
the best. You
know, I saw some of her stuff on Instagram, amazing. You can't do this with AI. You can't do this.
No, yet.
Oh please!
Pretty soon we're gonna just stick our arm in a machine and. It's, you know, the whole generation we live in, and this is get off your lawn, but kids are freaking lazy. You know, I talk to and I'm not going to talk political here, no matter what. Our minimum wage is so high, yet I'm ordering a coffee, and they're like, here, 20%. I'm like, what?
Immediately.
It's like you didn't do anything, and your minimum wage is so high. It's like people, and this is, I don't know why I got on this tangent, but talking about AI, people are lazy, and I don't like, you know. People are just lazy. They don't work. And this really sounds bad, but kids today, they'll go out and they want to, well, I'm not going to get a job because I'm going to become a content creator or I'm going to become like anybody says they're a YouTube star, an internet star. And that is old guy talking because we do live in that world.
One thing, again, I have a problem with is just soft guys, like guys that don't know how to use a chainsaw. They don't know how to do proper stuff, but they want to be content creators. It's like you can't function in a society if everyone's going to be doing content creation.
I don't know how to do much. Like today, my big deal was I changed the fuel line on my chopper, and that's all I know how to do.
Dude, I don't know how to do
and
that.
I don't know. Yeah, but you just stick something on and screw it on. And I was like, I'm wrenching on my bike, but if it's changing the oil, all this other stuff, well, I can do that. But you know, I don't know how to do it. Like I don't have my skills. Is like I can talk. And I've created, which isn't really a skill, but it's gotten me by this long.
But being able to talk, if it was a battle of content creation, guys in their 50s with real life experiences are going to do much better content than a 17-year-old kid that plays video games all day.
But are that many people going to follow him? There's kids that sit there and watch kids play Minecraft, and he's got 1 billion views and getting all this money. And the hatred that I feel is based 99% on jealousy.
That's the old guy talking.
It's 99% jealousy.
Yes.
It's like, motherfucker, I got to work. When I opened up the Cat House, I had to make flyers, and I had to go out and say, would you come to my club? Would you come to my club? Would you come to
right.
Now you just post it. Send it off, right? Oh my God!
Yeah,
we are grumpy old men. I love it.
Grumpy old men. But the mystique is with content and instant gratification of photos and videos. You don't have to wait on it. Like the mystique of handing out a flyer. There was something cool about that. You know, just posting an event on Facebook. It's cool, or Instagram, whatever. But you know, I go back to those days of getting a flyer, seeing the band, and going, I wonder what they sound like. They look cool. That guy's cool. You know, it was a whole thing.
But then it's like, let's see how many followers they have. But something funny about flyers, because I'm still old school and I'm not too proud to do anything. So I decided when I did my first One Foot in the Gutter show in Charlotte, I decided, you know what? I'm going to make flyers and I'll find a way to like put them on cars. So I'm like, what concerts in town? It's like, oh, Five Finger Death Punch is playing. So I went to the Five Finger Death Punch show with my assistant Karen, and we went to the show. And while the band was on stage, I'm like, let's go put flyers on everybody's car. And while I'm putting flyers on the car, the singer, Ivan, is like, I just want to give a shout out to Riki Rachtman's here. And I watched him growing up, and he's such an important part of my, and he's talking, and I'm like, putting flyers on leashes, hearing him do that. And it was like just kind of
old
a surreal
school
moment. But I've always been that way.
The pavement.
I mean, people don't realize, like, after Headbangers Ball, there was a long stretch where nothing came up, so I just got a job selling cars. I was like used car salesman. I've always been a hustler and still am. You know, I'm not too proud to work jobs, you know, and I'll always try to, you know, and people now, you know, like this is the old man thing it seems to me that I talk to people that own businesses, like a guy I know that owns a big silk screening business. And he brings people into work, and they'll show up for the first half day, and they won't even show up after lunch.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like people just don't want to work.
They do not want to work. There is a ton of lazy motherfuckers out there.
But this is like, oh my God, grumpy old men. This is what everybody's watching.
Listen, I'm telling you, this is a Gen X audience podcast.
I don't even know what a Gen Z, Gen X, Boomer. I don't know what anything. I mean, look, I'm 60 years old. I got a mohawk. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not now. I don't. I
think
this is more like a grow hawk. It's just like when the mohawk is just keeps growing. But it's like, you know, I live, you know, and to some people it makes people mad because even though I know I'm older, I really don't think I'm living that differently. I go see bands play. Yeah. I go listen to music too loud. I still ride motorcycles. I still do stupid shit. And how great that I could marry a tattoo artist. It's the same way as I am. You know?
Well, listen, when you were a kid, a 60-year-old guy didn't look like you.
When I was a kid, I remember when David Lee Roth turned 30, and I said, well,
he's
over. 30.
Yeah, it's over.
And now, like, I'm figuring, like when we were kids and we watched Three's Company and Mr. Roper was this old dude. Well, I'm older than Mr. Roper was back then. It's like
he was probably 35.
I'm really having a hard time as I am older now, looking at things and figuring, you know, and or I get this every time I go to a show. It's like some old dude will come up to me. He's like, dude, Riki Rachtman, yeah, man, I grew up watching you when I was a kid. I'm like, you're old and you were a kid watching me. It's like, it's all this thing that's really hard because I'm not trying to act young. I just do the same stuff that I've always done.
But doing that keeps you young. I'm telling you, being happy in life, not being a miserable fucking bitch, you know, being happy about doing what you're doing, that's going to keep you young, keeps your stress down. I mean, you've created a brand for yourself that you're able to pretty much write, hey, what do I want to do now with this brand, right? What I want to do now is Riki Rachtman. And dude, you do not look, oh my God, dude, I never would have thought you were 60 years old.
I'm 62.
Yeah. Oh, wait, 62?
Yeah.
Oh, now I see it.
No, you know what I was lying forever. And Wikipedia has it wrong. Wikipedia has everything wrong. And for the longest time I was lying, and people, I'm saying, how old do you think I am? And when I was like 59, they'd say like 42. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I would just say it. But you get to a point when you're lying about your age so long that it's almost like you're so old that it's cool. Like, you know what? Like, it's like, I'm going to go on the Headbangers boat in a month, and I know I'm going to be the oldest guy on the boat. you know, except maybe the captain.
Yeah, but for that, they're looking at you as the host of this thing. They're looking at you as Riki Rachtman.
I'd like to think so. When I did my One Foot in the Gutter shows,
You're
it
being
was
your own
really
worst
cool.
enemy.
It was, I've always have been. When I go to One Foot in the Gutter shows and I look out at the audience and I see kids there that are like, you know, like they weren't born till not when Headbangers were on, they were born like 2005. And I'm watching these people at my show, and that makes me feel really good. And it's also weird that there's been a lot of parents taking their kids to my show. I mean, I've had young kids. I don't know where I played, but I had a young kid at my show, like young, like 11. His name was Dawkin. And I told the parents while I'm on stage, I'm look, I'm talking about sex, I'm talking about a lot of drugs, I'm talking about porn, I'm talking about, you know, all this. Like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, yeah, your kid's named Dawkin, you know.
Dawkin. That's fantastic.
Oh my God, that poor kid. He has no idea why, right? Until he sees it, and hears it. Oh my God.
No,
man.
I feel the same way when I go to like venues and like bands I know that were like edgelord bands back in the day, bringing their like 6-year-old, be like, look who I used to love. And it's like, do you remember what they were singing about? Like,
well, there's another thing too. Like we've played a lot of the stuff after the Bon Jovi doc. We talked about Vince Neil and Motley Crue being out there, and we were pretty hard on Vince. But when you're a rock star and you let yourself go like that, like you look at you, dude, you're in shape, man. You've got your shit together. If you were Riki Rachtman and you were some fat slob that didn't take care of yourself, that's a different story. Now you're laughable, right?
And then
now
if I'm trying to push the same brand that I've always had,
not gonna
it's
work.
kind of silly. And the thing is, you know, I'm at the point that I believe if you're going to go out there and you're going to put out a product, and I don't care if your band was big in 1970 or your band was big in 2000, if you're out there and you're putting out a product, don't phone it in. You got to be, and I've said a million times what I think kind of Vince should do or whatever, and it was like, well, you got to give them a hand. I'm like, really? I just saw the Rolling Stones, the greatest rock and roll band, and they're not good for a bunch of 80-year-olds. They're good for being 20. They're awesome. Iron Maiden kills it still. Bad Religion kills it live. Faster Pussycat. Tammy's better now than he ever was.
Because they care. Because they care. They take care of
Because
themselves.
you got to put out a good product.
You got to give 100%.
Instead of worry so much about the cash, worry about, are you going to be giving everybody a good show?
Yeah.
You know, me just saying to you, like I said, well, when I was on tour, my head is saying, you just said when you were on tour, like, you got to understand, like, I was the guy sitting at, you know, one Christmas in 1989 at Nikki Sixx's house, and Fred Coury from Cinderella and Stephen Piercy's there and all these guys, and they're all talking about going on tour. And I remember this so vividly because they were all talking on tour, and I was like, God, if only to go on tour. And to think that I get to say I'm on tour. Every time I got in a van and drove to another gig, I'm like, I'm on tour. Just to sit here, this is surreal. Still, I did 41 shows. To say I went on tour is the coolest thing ever. Now imagine, and my wife just found the video of this. Is it still called video when you film it on your phone?
Isn't that crazy? They do the same thing.
Is it still called video?
It's still on tape too, right? Is that on tape? Yeah.
I have a thing of me laying in bed while I was on the road, love saying it, when I got a call to do 4 shows in Australia. If I wrote down what my dreams were, that wouldn't have been there, because I never dreamed something so cool. I sold out Sydney, Australia.
Isn't that crazy?
You know, and I was on stage, I'm like, you guys, what? Did you guys get Headbangers Ball? They're like, no, we didn't get it out here. I'm like, why are you here? You know, and there's a thing that I've learned. Me and Tammy from Faster Pussycat had an argument about whose job is harder, singing in Faster Pussycat or me doing my stories. And I said, my job is way harder because you just have to go up there and talk. I'm like, dude, you just go up there, sing with a band, the same thing every time. But to me, a feeling that I don't take for granted is when you say something and people are laughing is a really good feeling. But there's a time in my show when I'm up there and I'm telling the show and I stop and it's dead silent and there's, you know, hundreds of people there and it's
They're
dead
on the
silent.
edge of their
and I'm
seats.
sitting there, I'm like, holy fuck, I got him. And then I deliver and I was like, it is the greatest thing. I mean, you know, I still have very big goals. I still have things that I want to do. And I hope that now I'm in the process of finally starting to make these things happen. But that was the best. That was just the best, you know?
And it was when you were doing that, did you ever want to be in a band?
I was in Battery Club. Battery Club did sort started going to, we did like 5 shows opening up for Offspring. And Virgin played some shows around LA and stuff like that. But it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't like going on tour, and we were just another band.
Well, were you like Hollywood. Just like for me, like
but
just
still,
that whole
but the answer to your question is like I remember like I went to go see. I'm standing on the stage for the band Spirit Box the other night, and I'm standing on stage watching Courtney singing out there, looking at the big crowds, and there's still that part of me that's like, God, I wish I could be that guy. Like I've always wanted to be in a band to this day. And the only thing stopping me was lack of talent.
Like I would argue that the Cathouse brand is probably bigger than 70% of the strip bands that came out.
I'd say 90.
90%. So
Cathouse
there you go.
brand is stronger now than it is, and that's entirely run 110% by me. And I never sold the brand out, you know. That's and awesome. I've always stuck by it. I'm very, very proud that I have 2 offices that. We do nothing but sell Cathouse shirts or merch, and I try to work on my other stuff there. But I'm so very, very proud. I mean, everything that I've done. I think the difference between me now and then is I'm so grateful, and I don't ever use the word fans. I don't ever say, "Oh, my fans are so great."
Yeah.
Even though other people have used that word, I just don't like to say that. But my mom went to a show, and my sister went to a show, and she goes, "Those people." Fans, which I don't like calling them fans, she goes, are like really like rabid. Like there's people that have gone to 8 shows. There's people that, you know, I just started a Patreon, which I didn't want to do, but I've got so much content and I want to give it to them.
Yeah. So
there's different levels, and the Patreon's really taken off, and I call it Rack Pack, and it really is a community. And the truth is, from my shows, from going out on the road, I have made friends. Like if you're at my show, like, thank you. You're my friend. Like, you really showing up and supporting. And I'm the guy that if I go on Facebook and 20 people are saying, dude, I love what you do, and this one guy goes, poser, and I'm fixated, like, I'm going to find out where you live. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And then that person's in my head.
Don't read the comments.
And it happened today. And I go, stop. And instead, like, you know, instead of these 100 people that are supporting me, I've still got that thing that those people matter. And all they do is want attention.
Yeah.
All they do is want attention, you know? And it's sad, but, you know, that's who I am. I'm chemically imbalanced. I've suffered from whatever you got, I got it.
That's the thing, too, about storytelling in that era of Sunset Strip in the 80s, during that era. Even today, that's the stories we want to hear. No one's lining up to hear stories from the guys that were hanging out with Justin Bieber. Like, you're not going to...
Yeah, but you sure want to hear the stories about the guys hanging out with P. Diddy.
No, I don't know about that.
We've heard a few. I don't know if I want to hear anymore.
Holy shit.
They found 1,000 bottles of baby oil in his mansion. That guy was going for it. Or Costco had a great sale. I don't know. It was one of the two.
Like, there's some 80s bands that I don't like. Yeah. I like dirty, ugly, dangerous stuff. And I said something about Stryper, but not throwing shade on the band. And then that guy, Michael Sweet's like, it's a really nice guy. You know, I feel bad. Like, so when I say anything about it, I'm not slamming Stryper. It's just not my stuff. Like, I tend, even though I am spiritual and I do believe in God and I do pray, I'm more to listen to a band with a pentagram on the album cover than then, you know. I'm not going to go to hell because I listen to Venom, you know. And you're not going to go to heaven because you listen to Creed. Definitely.
Right. And you're not going to get laid if you listen to Nickelback.
Well, also, the worst thing you can do is get me talking on stuff that I like to talk about, like me.
When did you open the Cathouse?
1986.
86. Okay. All right.
Tuesday nights, right?
Tuesday night, September 23rd. The anniversary was yesterday from the day.
That's right.
And you know what today is also? Was the anniversary of me giving my receptionist a gig to play at the Cathouse with his new band Blind Melon. And I was looking at the flyer of introducing Blind Melon at the Cathouse, and next week come to the Cathouse to see Pearl Jam, and the week after that Prong, and I'm like, how did I do it? I mean, I knew I had the greatest rock and roll club in the world, but when I think about the greatest rock and roll club in the world, other than Guns N' Roses and Motorhead, I think about more of the feeling of the club and what was going on there, rather than just thinking about like, oh yeah, Pearl Jam ended up playing there twice, or you know.
Did you become an accidental promoter, and did you want to be a promoter or just have a club?
I started being a club DJ and playing dance music, and I started playing turntables like you would play a guitar. I was really good at the mixing and stuff, and this was like a long time ago. And then I was listening to heavy metal and punk rock. I started as punk when I was a kid. And then I just kind of, saw Tammy at a show. I was a club promoter, sort of, and became friends with Tammy and became roommates. And he was really tied in with the scene. So we, got together and opened up the Cathouse. And I wanted to open, it's been said in movies, it's been said a million times. The reason that the Cathouse was open was so we could meet girls and get free drinks and have a safe place for us to hang out, because we were all getting thrown out of all the other clubs with no intention of it. A club would last like maybe a good one a year, maybe 2 year. No idea that it would last as long as it did, and that I would do a killer 20th anniversary, killer 30th anniversary, and contemplating doing a 40th anniversary in 2 years.
Like around town, was it an insiders club? Like that's where you're going to go see?
At first. What happened was, and I remember this vividly as well, is there was a club in Hollywood called Vertigo. And Vertigo was where all the cool people went. And there was a red velvet rope and a guy with a clipboard that he would sit there and he'd go, you, and he'd get all these girls in and he'd go like, you. And I'd be waiting in line. I'm like, eh. And I never got picked. And I was like, fuck you, clipboard guy. You're like the coolest guy in town, the clipboard. So I said, when I have my club, there's not going to be cool people. It's going to be us. Yeah. It's going to be us. And if Milli Vanilli showed up, which they did. So the guy in Milli Vanilli shows up at the Cathouse and he's like, we'd like to go in and you present us with girls and cocaine. And I'm like,
yes.
And this isn't like a rumor, because it happened to me. He said it to me and I'm like, get the fuck out. I didn't say get the fuck out. I was like, no. And but it was very underground when it started. The difference between Cathouse and maybe the Sunset Strip scene is Cathouse in its first year almost borderlined on being gothy and punk, and it was Steve Jones from the Pistols. It was the Cult. And, of course, Guns N' Roses and Faster Pussycat and Jane's Addiction and LA Guns. And those bands were all there. But we weren't like the Sunset Strip scene. But what it started happening is the Sunset Strip scene came over and they hung it at the Cathouse. And that was completely okay. And then I was walking... I even remember it was in Santa Monica Boulevard, sort of where the Troubadour was, and there was a newspaper out called Beverly Hills 213, and it was the hip magazine that told all the great things that are happening and had a list of what's hip and what's not, like what's in, what's out. And it said, what's out is Vertigo, the club that they wouldn't let me in because of the rope. What's in, Cathouse. And when I saw that Cathouse was now in, I'm like, I'm done. Because that was the kiss of death. Because I didn't want to be the in club.
Didn't want to be that.
And pretty soon it was the club that the celebrities were showing up. The Robert Downey Jr., Brad Pitt. I can't even think of it.
But they're going there because it's trending, and you didn't want to be the trendy
But they also
crowd.
went there, like when I think about the old days, I think a lot of people went there because I always had that strict rule, no cameras in the club. And I think people went there because they wouldn't get bugged.
You had the very first safe place.
It was a safe place for us misfits.
The Rainbow had that rule too at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. Not as strict, but when I first showed up on the scene in LA, they were like, it was still kind of an edgier rock and roll bar, and it had the same.
But it was
rules.
the Sunset Strip. It was very. I mean, I went to the Rainbow. I have a few stories of the Rainbow, even before the Cathouse was open. Just being so fucked up there and walking through these aisles, eating food off people's plates, and just seeing this like crazy thing. It was. And when I say how Cathouse was a different scene, this is not to put insults on the Whiskey, Roxy, Troubadour, or Scream, or the White Trash, or any of these other clubs, because together we made a really great community. And the big difference between now and then is people made an effort, like they wanted to go out. And you would say like, oh, let's go to the Whiskey tonight. Who's playing? I don't know. People made an effort to go out. So we would go to the Cathouse Tuesday. We'd go to Bordello Thursday. Maybe go to Scream on Monday. You'd go to Denny's afterwards. You'd go shopping at Rock&Roll Ralph's. I mean, we had a community, and this community was what ended up being some of the biggest rock stars in the world. And it was awesome. It was awesome. It was very dangerous, and we lost a lot of friends, but it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
The legend of the Cathouse, growing up, being a kid 20 miles away, watching Decline of Western Civilization, it was mythical. I went to the Cathouse Live event in Anaheim. Been to
Oh,
your
God,
shows.
that was terrible.
I thought it was great.
No. Cathouse Lure, it wasn't in Anaheim. It was in Irvine.
Irvine.
So what happened was, or cut you off, keep on saying.
No, I was just saying, so I followed it because it had such an impact on me as a kid wanting to be a rock star. I felt like, well, the whiskey's a club, but the place to go would be the Cathouse.
So then Live Nation calls me and they're like, we want to do a festival called Cathouse Live. And I was like, oh, I don't know about doing it as long as I have the say on the bill. So, I'm more of a handshake kind of contract guy, but when you're working with one of the biggest companies, Live Nation, and I signed a contract and I didn't even really know what's going on. And pretty soon I really lost who was playing, and it had nothing to do with me. And even though to some the lineup was great, but there were bands that had never stood in the Cathouse. I'm like, oh, well, here's where you're going to have Pretty Boy Floyd. I'm like, who's Pretty Boy Floyd? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, Extreme is going to be the closer. Extreme is a great band. Nuno's one of the greatest guitarists, but they had nothing to do with the Cathouse. He goes, we're going to put them on last. And there was an all-star jam.
So what year? This
is 2000.
2004.
Oh,
no,
okay.
2005. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 2005. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, the story goes on like I show up at the front and they're not letting me in. Sorry. Like, it's the Cathouse. It's my club, my festival. Oh, well, you're not on the list here. I mean, it was so much that was a nightmare that I just kind of let go of it. And even though so many people, I don't remember how many people were there. 10,000 maybe?
It was a good crowd.
Something like that. Like, I don't know how many people were there, but it didn't feel right to me. And even though everybody had fun, because it was a great lineup. It was Sebastian Bach, it was Tom Kiefer, it was, LA Guns, Faster Pussycat, Junkyard. I know I'm forgetting a lot of bands that were great bands that played on this. And it got to the point that I was really losing touch of, I didn't have any say. So I had an all-star jam that me and Gilby Clarke put together. And on stage, I've got Sebastian Bach singing like Deuce with Ace Frehley and Evan from Biohazard and Gilby Clarke, and I don't remember who it. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I've got Sebastian, who's just
now
a
you're
killer.
in your spot.
And I'm like, right on. And in the middle of the set, the stage starts. You're turning it while Ace is up there with Bach. I'm like, no, don't do this. And it turned, and I just lost it. And then Extreme went on, who a lot of people love, and they're a great band. And I've got nothing against them, but they weren't a Cathouse band, and they knew they weren't a Cathouse band. And when I'm sitting there, and More Than Words is playing, and people are walking out, and again, I'm not throwing shade on Extreme. I'm like, no, I wanted to end it with this all-star jam, and because of that. Which everybody had a great time. Like, if you asked everybody, fuck yeah, Extreme was killer. And then I saw, all these bands and Stephen Pearcy and all these. Well, Stephen Pearcy belonged there, but they had a great time, and it was good because we had strippers on the front.
It was fantastic.
It was sort of like a
bringing it back
theme,
to life,
but it wasn't. But it was Live Nation. That was the first time I let anybody else work with me as a promoter to do something Cathouse, and it didn't work in my opinion. So that's when I came back like. In 2006, 2 years later, and I did the Cathouse 20th anniversary, which was promoted by me. I picked every band. I did the Cathouse 30th anniversary. I sold out the Whiskey and the Roxy in like 2 minutes and never announced one band. It's sold out, fastest sell out on the Sunset Strip.
Sold out by the brand.
And it's sold out by me and the Cathouse. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, hold on a second. I've got a sold out night and nobody know who's playing. So I want to do something that nobody is expecting and not tell anybody, including Tammy. So I'm thinking, okay, what's a band that I can put on that wasn't a Cathouse band that doesn't play anymore? So the curtains went down and the curtains go up, and it was Twisted Sister after they said they're not playing anymore.
Yep.
And people are like, what the fuck is Twisted Sister doing at the Cathouse? Because they're not necessarily a Cathouse band, but I wanted people to, and I could have just phoned it in, but I wanted the greatest show around, and they fucking destroyed it. And then the next night we had a whole bunch of bands, like, the LA Guns, the Faster Pussycats, the Buck Cherry, the everybody, and then we ended it with an all-star jam tribute to Motorhead, because the 20th anniversary that I did, the all-star jam was just put on by Lemmy. Motorhead was the last band to play the Cathouse, and they played Cathouse stuff all the time. Lemmy was a very, very good friend and did so much great stuff for me. And, we didn't have Lemmy around for the Cathouse 30th anniversary. So I had all these different people doing an all-star jam, playing Motorhead songs, and I had Corey Parks. She was a bass player in this band, Nashville Pussy, and she's this big, 6'6", pretty girl, big boobs, tattooed, that played bass, and she was good friends with Lemmy. And she's playing bass and they're doing Motorhead. She fucking goes and blows out fire that goes over the whole fucking crowd. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Corey? But it was just it. It was like down, dirty, and it was great. So if I did a Cathouse 40th anniversary, it'd probably be called Rockers with Walkers. But it still has to be great. And I don't know how many bands can bring it, and it can't be someplace big. It's got to be something. And to be honest, if there's a Cathouse 40th anniversary, Guns N' Roses has to be involved somehow. Yeah. It's got to be something with Guns, because there's not going to be a Cathouse 50th anniversary or 51st anniversry or a Cathouse tour.
You were friends with them way before they hit anything, right?
Was Guns N' Roses? Yeah. I owe everything to Guns N' Roses. I'm the first to say that I owe my career to Axl. I'm the first one to say that. I mean, he called up MTV to set up my audition. He went with me to New York for my audition.
Okay, really? I didn't know if that was exaggerated. That's really how it went down,
absolutely. Huh? Axl was wearing Cathouse shirts all the time. Axl would give shout-outs to me in the Cathouse. And, and then when it came to doing the It's So Easy video, they said, look, let's play the Cathouse. And this was like just before they were playing with the Rolling Stones in front of 100,000 people. And now they're playing Cathouse with a full-blown film crew. And, Alan Niven, who you saw in Nothing But a Good Time, and he was a manager, he said that was the best show Guns N' Roses ever played. What we did, instead of like tickets, I made these flyers that Axl did the artwork, and they were simple. It said, bring this flyer and $5 and you get to see Guns N' Roses, right? And then we took it to Alan Niven's office, and there was some embossed stamp.
Yeah.
And so we stamped each one so it couldn't have been forged. And then I'm looking, and I'm like, I've got two of them. Oh, I found two of them. I'm like, I didn't even think, like, these things are worth a shitload of money. I'm like, they are? Like, I've got all this stuff that I didn't even realize is worth a lot of money.
Yeah, you're on a treasure trove.
I didn't even know.
How did you guys meet? How long did you guys know each other?
It was probably in the very, very early days, like maybe the first night of the Cathouse. I think I met Duff first at Denny's and invited him to the Cathouse.
But just for
it's 1986.
Details. Okay,
this is September 1986.
Okay,
and then I know that Axl came to the Cathouse, and I became friends with those guys. So I would tell the doorman, the guest list is Guns N' Roses plus anything, and they weren't big. The reason that I let Guns N' Roses in is because these guys were my friends, and they're baddest band around. Because Guns N' Roses, the beauty of Guns N' Roses is you never knew if you were going to get a 3-hour show or if Axl was going to kick somebody's teeth in and play for 4 minutes, because Guns N' Roses was dangerous and Guns N' Roses was raw. And that's why seeing Guns N' Roses back then, the greatest rock and roll band, period.
When you see a band that before they were signed, where are they if they're not playing at the Whiskey, they're not playing at the those venues, where are they playing that you can see them? You're like, oh my God, no one's ever, like, where do you go?
That was where they played.
Where nobody ever hears of them.
Like, I rented out the Roxy and promoted them for 2 nights, and one night I had, I think, Faster Pussycat open, the other night I had LA Guns open or something like that. And
but there's no like backyard parties people see them at or things like that, like where they're like
there were random shows. I mean, the backyard parties, those are all like, to me, those are like the Van Halen stories.
Okay.
Which was before my time. But we would see them, the Whiskey, the Roxy. I remember Steven Adler calling me, and he's like, dude, we're opening up for Cheap Trick tonight in Long Beach, I think, or Perkins Palace. No, I think it was Long Beach, Fender's Ballroom. He goes, we're opening up for Cheap Trick tonight. I'm like, right on. He's like, yeah. And he goes, I got to get to, I'm like, you're playing tonight with Cheap Trick. You don't know how you're going to get in the show. He's like, oh, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, let's go. So I drove him to the show, and they were opening up for Cheap Trick, and I saw him opening up for all these bands.
Yeah.
But
so you did see him in places. That's when you guys were just
oh
friends.
yeah, oh yeah.
And you were talking about the whole pay to play piece, right? Where you would buy out the tickets.
Pay to play band. I'm going to tell you, but you can hear the story on the Cathouse Hollywood podcast. The only band to ever pay to play the Cathouse was the Black Crows.
Really?
Yeah,
$400.
Yes.
$400. And they were great. That's why I cared about every band that played the stage. If you weren't good, you're not playing the Cathouse.
Chris, you're talking about low-hanging fruit places. Obviously, everybody knows the Whiskey, the Roxy, the Troubadour. But I want to ask Ricky if you ever, your favorite memories from a couple of places, because I've tried to prepare a couple of questions from a 80s geek that I haven't heard you talk about yet from the scene. Coconut Teaser.
Coconut Teaser, which most people don't realize, was originally on Crescent Heights, but then it moved right to Sunset. And I mean, we'd have the guys from Guns N' Roses would do the drunk fucks, and we'd have a lot of bands would play there, and a lot of some of the bands from the Hollywood scene. But I just remember going there and getting these big goblets of whatever and just drinking. And then I remember they used to sell shrimp, like they'd have food there. And I remember, it's weird, like instead of the bands, but I think Zach Sabbath played there a bunch of times. I'm pretty sure. But what I remember is eating the shrimp and seeing this black thing. I'm like, what is the black thing in shrimp? And everybody's like, it's shrimp shit. It's shrimp shit. So instead of me remembering all these great bands playing, I remember eating shrimp that ended up having shit in it. So Coconut Teaser was on the beginning of the Sunset Strip, and it would have bands play there. I wouldn't say, you would go there once in a while just to get drinks on certain nights, and some bands did play there.
So what about Exposure 54?
Okay, Exposure, now here's my member. Exposure 54 was, I would say, jumped on the Cathouse bandwagon. When Cathouse was the biggest club, other clubs were opening up. And Exposure 54, Cathouse was open up at the Probe, which was a notorious gay disco. And I didn't own the building. There was a gay disco that was on Saturday night, and I'm like, okay, well, I think most of these people have never been to this gay disco, so I'm going to take it on a Tuesday night. So everybody thought I never owned a building ever.
Oh, okay.
So I took over in the Cathouse. The Probe building was the second location. We were originally at Osco's, which is an old torn up disco. But so Exposure 54 occasionally had bands play, but we used to always, we had the Cathouse alumni, which had the 3-patch, like the motorcycle club vest that said Cathouse Hollywood with a skull in the middle. And it wasn't a lot of people, and we kicked ass, and we would go in there like we owned the town, and we'd walk in Exposure 54 on a Sunday night. And it was more Sunset Strippy, and it lasted for a long time. And I think all of the clubs that opened, everybody had good intentions, but it wasn't innovative. In everything, anytime somebody tries to do something that's cool, it's not cool. If you want to open up a club, I want to open up a club like the Cathouse, and it's going to be really, really cool. Well, it's not, because you said like. There wasn't anything like the Cathouse. It was, you walk in there.
I don't want it to be like those ones.
No.
That's how you started.
And then when other people are doing offshoots, and I'm, when they saw the success, of course other clubs open up. And Exposure 54 did well, and we would go there quite a few Sundays. And I don't remember the guy's name that ran it, but he was, like a Sunset Strip rocker guy, but they always treated it nice. But we'd roll in there and we'd take over, because everybody needs the Cathouse alumni. We're just fucking shit starters. And we were. We were fighting. We were stealing women. We were doing all that shit. We were vandalizing. We weren't good people. But yeah, we would go to those clubs. And Exposure 54 was one of them. And that's like when I talk about there being a great scene in LA, like you go to Cathouse Tuesday, Bordello Thursday, Exposure, on a Sunday maybe.
I got a couple more I want to run by you. Your favorite memory of Bill Gazzari and Gazzaris?
I have no memories of Bill Gazzari.
No,
because
really?
I didn't go to Gazzari's. I went to Gazzari's once to see this punk rock band called Aversion, who's a great friend of mine, Christian. But Gazzari's was not my scene. And I never hung out at Gazzari's. And Bill Gazzari...
What was Gazzari's?
it was a club on the Sunset Strip that had this big sign, but I'll tell you how it turns around. And they used to have, remember it said they had like K&C, and they had paintings of like Vince Steele and all these like
They had
big
the rising
bands.
stars on the side.
Yes,
like
and like
Bill's top 10 stars, and if you got in that star, you were like an up and comer in the club.
But Bill Gazzari was this like, he was the godfather of rock and roll. And he used to be this old dude that used to dress like that. And he used to do these commercials. It's like, I'm Bill Gazzari, the godfather of rock and roll. And if you come to my club, you're going to see the hottest, something like the hottest guys on stage or the foxiest chicks. And if the guys aren't hot, they're not on my stage. And the foxiest chicks. And it was kind of like cheesy, and it was very Sunset Strip. It was much more Sunset Strip than the Whiskey and Roxy, but it was a vibrant part of the scene. Now, when they tore down Gazzari's, they turned it into Billboard Live.
Yeah.
And I was the host for Billboard Live, which was a mainstream club. And the reason that I mention it, because I was the MC for that night, because I was doing talk radio, and on that stage I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, Tony Bennett, and hand the mic to Tony Bennett. Like, that's fucking cool, right?
That's pretty rad.
And then Billboard Live closed, and it became the Key Club.
Key Club.
And when it was the Key Club, that's when I did the Cathouse 20th anniversary at the Key Club. So I was on the location. So Gazzari just wasn't my scene, because I really came from punk rock. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say this, but you know, now that I have my own Patreon, I'm starting to put old Headbangers Ball videos, and I'm watching an interview I did with DRI, and like, at that point, I only knew moshing as slam dancing. And I really, even though I liked a lot of thrash bands because it sounded like punk rock to me, I really didn't get it as much. And I was terrible when I first started hosting Headbangers Ball. I mean, now that's the only music I listen to is mostly thrash.
Madame Wong's.
So Madame Wong's was important for a couple reasons. Because Madame Wong's, they had two. They had Madame Wong's on Santa Monica Boulevard, and then they had Madame Wong's in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Now, when I started going to punk rock shows, the very first punk rock show, there was Madame Wong's and there was Cafe de Grand. And they were both next to each other. And the first punk rock show I ever went to was Black Flag, when Keith Morris was a singer, The Germs, Fear. I don't remember. It's Chinas Comidas, but I remember that's when first time I ever saw The Germs. And it was a great punk rock venue. And then Madame Wong's West was on Santa Monica Boulevard. So I decided, while I'm still loaded, look, Riki Rachtman, have got the hottest club around. I want to do New Year's Eve parties. So I started doing my New Year's Eve parties at Madame Wong's. And the lines were massive. And I had 2 stories. And the stage was like this big. And I remember I had Danzig play, and I never announced bands. Like, a lot of times what they would do in LA, they go, band's too big to be announced. And like do a little hint. You know, I never did, because I knew I was going to sell out anyway. So I want people to be surprised. And also because I didn't know who was going to play. So I had Danzig play one time, and Shannon Hoon from Blind Melon stood on the stage to work as security. I'd have Guns N' Roses, I'd have Suicidal Tendencies, and all the regular Cathouse bands. And so I would do Madame Wong's on New Year's, and then I said, well, I'm going to do one on my birthday, which is June. So I would do those 2 nights. And I remember that like one night, I made like 10 or 15 grand cash at the door. And I remember
then that was a lot of money.
Sure.
It's a lot of money now.
It is.
And I remember saying on stage, which was such a horrible thing to say and so stupid too. I remember saying, it's like, thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to go buy a jet ski. Okay, why I said jet ski, I have no idea.
Yes.
I never bought a jet ski. But I've never, ever told
ski.
people, I don't think I've ever changed whether I made lots of money or didn't. Right. You know, there's very few things I own in my life today that are like a little gratuitous, you know? And I never wanted to be that, like, look at me, I'm the club promoter and this and that, except I start buying nicer cars and stuff like this. But yeah, I would make money on those shows.
I love the idea of not telling who's playing.
Nobody could pull that off.
Fucking
nobody could.
No,
but then it got to the point. But then it got to the point that everybody thought when I said, you know, and bands that I'm not announcing, that to a lot of people meant it was Guns N' Roses. So you'd show up and it might not be Guns N' Roses. I mean, when Megadeth played the Cathouse and I didn't announce who it was. It was Vic and the Rattleheads, which most people knew was Megadeth. With Body Count, with Ice-T's band, they were banned from playing anywhere. With Suicidal Tendencies, they were banned from playing. So certain bands I couldn't really announce. And the beauty is that when the Cathouse was open, if we had, let's say, I'll just say Jackal, or I'm just going to mention a random band. If we had Jackal play the Cathouse, let's say there's 600 people there. And the next week it's going to be Wild West night where we all dress like cowboys and stupid stuff. There's still going to be 600 people there with no bands. It's like we were just the same amount of people like every week, and it didn't matter who played.
From what I've heard, when I heard the lore of the Cathouse, again, I'm behind you guys, so I got to hear it secondhand, was Riki had the scene so tightly paying attention to him that if he announced the band, it was less hype than if he said, we're not announcing. Like people automatically, I
sure.
got to be there in case, just in case.
Because you're in tune to everybody. It could be
biggest,
anybody.
And then all of a sudden that guy that owns the Cathouse is on television with the Headbangers Ball. So now I'm like, every band that would be on Headbangers Ball wanted to play the Cathouse. So then like Stone Temple Pilots, can we play the Cathouse? All these bands are Primus, can we play all these bands want to play the Cathouse because now Riki Rachtman isn't just the Cathouse guy, he's the guy from Headbangers Ball. I must have been a prick back then to deal with. I can imagine that I was not such a great guy because, when you're the guy in high school, and this is going to sound bad to say, but when you're the guy in high school that was too scared to talk to girls, that girls didn't want to talk to you because you were a punk rocker, and maybe, I lost my virginity just before I turned 18, and maybe like at, 19 or 20, maybe I'd had sex with 2 girls, and then all of a sudden you open up the Cathouse, and you can have like as many beautiful women as you want.
You get a little ego boost.
Like all of a sudden it's like and I was a womanizer, I was a drug addict. The problem is I keep on getting rewarded. Like I'm this drug addict that's fucking all these girls,
right.
And the money keeps rolling in. It's like, well, are you gonna get sober? Why get sober when all these things were happening?
Scumbag Incorporated, but it worked out, right?
It worked great.
I got 2 more clubs to ask you about. And you don't have to, these are valid
I
clubs.
am not scared to answer anything.
Well, I just want to hear, just as a fan and a guy that followed you, I've never heard you talk about these places. Country Club.
I got arrested there.
Oh, what did you do at the Country Club, can you say?
Yeah. I went there, and I think Poison was playing, and me and the Cathouse alumni went backstage, and like we always did, we caused shit. And there was a birthday cake there, and I think what happened was Bobby Dahl threw a cake at somebody, and then I grabbed cake and started throwing at it and threw cake at a security guard. And he came up to me and he put me in handcuffs and he threw me on a chair and he said, "You're going to jail." I'm like, I was a dick to security guard. I mean, put it this way, if security guard said I'm gonna have to throw you out, I'm like, okay. But the one thing, and I'm not a big guy, I'm not a tough guy, but I don't like being touched by security guards when they don't need to. When somebody grabs me, I got pissed. And I always had big friends. They were my sponsors. They were my friends before I got known. And so usually shit would break out. But I remember the security guard grabbed me and he set me down and he said, "You're going to go to jail." And he said, "Who's the guy that threw the first piece of cake?" And I don't rat people out. I never did. I never will. And even though Bobby Dahl wasn't my great friend, I'm not going to rat Bobby Dahl out. He's a good dude. And so he says, "I'm going to place you under citizen's arrest." And when somebody places you under citizen's arrest and the cops come, they have to arrest you and take you to jail. But that leaves the person that placed the citizen's arrest open for a lawsuit. So what happened is they picked me up, they took me to jail. My friend Keith was with me. So Keith was calling the security guard like, "Oh, cake face, you can't put him in." Just kept on calling the guy cake face. So they go, "You're going to jail too." So they threw Keith in jail. So they threw both of us in jail. And Scotty Ross, who managed Poison, bailed me out of jail but didn't bail Keith out. So Keith, who's now still one of my best friends, is a successful attorney. Keith ended up staying in jail and didn't even get bailed out of jail. So that's my recollection of the Country Club. Country Club was in the Valley, which was cross street from like a skateboard park, my first skateboard park. And Country Club was in the Valley. So Country Club got a lot of the big bands. I remember Leatherwolf was a big band at the time. And all the bands played the Country Club. But to go to the Valley, when you live in Hollywood, you don't go to the Valley. If you live in the Valley, you go to Hollywood.
Right.
But it's like, if we're here in North Carolina, I live in a town called Mooresville. Now, if I put a cat house in Mooresville, people from Charlotte probably from Charlotte might not go to Mooresville, but if I put a club in Charlotte, people from Mooresville would go to. Does that make any sense? I don't know if the North Carolina example works, but
no, it does. Because everybody's got the same kind of towns.
Like
you're a small town,
I'll
big
give you an
town
example,
thing, right?
You know what TMZ means?
30 mile zone.
Yeah.
30 mile zone. And it was our 30 mile zone in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And you didn't venture out of the 30 mile zone, but ours was like the 10 mile zone. So we had the Whiskey, Roxy. Maybe you'd go a little bit further down east, or maybe Santa Monica for Madame Wong's, but you didn't come to the Valley. But occasionally we'd go to Country Club because they'd have good shows.
During the strip heyday, when I wasn't there, this is just from studying as a geek, the Viper Room was called the Central, right?
Yes, which actually before it was called the Central, it was called Filthy McNasty's, and that's the FM from FM station. Was Filthy McNasty.
So that's the same guy.
I believe it was. Now, when I was a kid growing up on the Sunset Strip, and I'm talking about 9 or 10 years old, Filthy McNasty owned this hearse that was like this crazy painted hearse. And I remember that he used to drive down the street in this hearse, and I was too young to go to Filthy McNasty's. Now, when it became the Central, I was doing a lot of drugs, and I started working for this publicist, like mailing out. I just wanted to get a job because Cat House wasn't paying my bills. So I started working for this rock and roll publicist. And I think her two bands were like Poison and maybe Vinnie Vincent, or maybe Vinnie Vincent Invasion.
What year was this?
This would have to have been in 86.
It wasn't Vicky Hamilton, was it?
No. This was a publicist. Her name was Deb Rosner.
Oh, okay.
And I remember doing meth in the closet and then mailing things out. But I got a little office next to it. I called it Rachtman Entertainment. And I decided to do a Halloween party at the Central, which the capacity at the Central is maybe
150, maybe.
I don't know about that.
Maybe.
It's very small. The Viper Room, for people that don't know, is very small. But the Central was just this dirty club. So I had it, and which is weird because Poison never played the Cat House, but Poison played that night, and I started a band called the Bumflies, which were like flies that used to hang around homeless people, and I called it Bumflies. And it was me and Ryan Roxy and probably Gilby Clark and Tammy, and we just get fucked up and sing covers, and all of our friends would hang out there at the Central, and it was just like really just a bunch of drunks having a Halloween party.
So
I was really wasted. I've seen pictures of that time, and I was just a mess.
How's it feel for a guy like you that lived it when it was relevant, real time, and not exposed to the world, and now you're in a world where everybody tries to live that, like the Sunset Strip? Is it surreal to look back and go like,
yes, it's very surreal when people come up to me with cat house tattoos that are like in their 20s.
Wow.
That's really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Because I remember coming up with the name Cat House. I remember asking my tattoo artist friends to draw a logo. So it's very surreal. And sometimes I think like, why isn't somebody offering me $1 million to create a high-end rock and roll clothing brand? You know, like I would collaborate with a person like a John Varvatos or something like that, but it's just never happened. And because I've held the brand
just
so
licensing,
tight,
no licensing or anything like that?
No, I would do a licensing if I still had control creatively. You know, if it's a high-end, like I wouldn't do, ironically, I wouldn't do a Cat House shirts at Hot Topic. But the funny thing is, ironically, as soon as I got on Headbangers Ball, there was a store opening up in Montclair called Hot Topic. And this was the first Hot Topic. And they decided to do an in-store. And they said, would you come here and sign autographs and sell your Cat House shirts? I'm like, yeah. And this is right after Headbangers Ball. So I remembered, and I was still Ricky from the Cathouse, blah, blah, blah. So I remember showing up, and a van picks me up and takes me, and I'm in the parking lot, and there was lines outside. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Didn't bring enough
and
shirts.
The security guard says, let's go inside. And there was lines on the mall. And I said, what's going on here? He's like, ha ha. I go, no, really, what's going on? He's like, they're all here for you. I'm like, what? And there were hundreds and hundreds of people that the mall had to shut it down because they were blocking every store. And it was the most surreal moment because it's like, am I like famous kind of? You know, am I like this? And signing autographs all day that I never signed really autographs before. And it was just really weird that, I don't know, that I'd mentioned Hot Topic because I wouldn't sign the licensing deal to Hot Topic, but it's ironic that the first in-store ever at Hot Topic was me when I'd been on Headbangers Ball for a week. That was like, wow, like it was weird. And you know, I know that I'm the most humble motherfucker around right now. And I've changed a lot. And I'm very, very grateful because I spent many years flat broke, really, really broke. And this was after 2000. And when that happened at Hot Topic, I've never spoke about this before. When that happened at Hot Topic, it was kind of like, this is kind of weird. Like all of a sudden, you know, I'm kind of like famous. And it was weird because I still had the same friends and I still did the same stuff. And it was kind of weird. And then all of a sudden the name Riki Rachtman wasn't like my name. It was like kind of a brand.
It
like
wasn't, it wasn't you.
I was at the airport and someone's like, Riki Rachtman. So what I do is walk over because obviously if somebody calls your name, they're your friend. I'm like, hey man, what's happening? He's going, nothing, just sit. And I was like, oh, I don't know this person.
Right.
He's just calling out my name. And then for all the haters that I had that would call me names because of Headbangers or whatever, they all left their mark on me. Because I'd like to say I'd brush it off, but I was always that guy, still sort of, that, you know, I could, like I remember
something
that I was
to prove.
playing, I remember that I was playing somewhere and tickets went on sale and somebody said, who the fuck is going to go buy tickets to see Riki Rachtman? That poser has been talk. And it bummed me out. I sold out the show, but it's still like, you know, how come I don't remember all the people that were excited? And that's my own problem. I have problems with that. I mean,
so
now
that's a recent thing. That's a recent comment section piece. That's what that is. Yeah.
Oh, I've been hated on today. I've been hated on back then. But you know, now when somebody says you're a poser, but which I still don't understand why they're saying it when I didn't create the scene, but I was very, very, you know, I was the one that booked, you know, Megadeth and Exodus and Suicidal Tendencies and Danzig and Corrosion of Conformity when they weren't allowed to play clubs in LA. But I'm the poser that I'm being called a poser by a fucking 30-year-old, you know? And I was like, wow. Like,
what do you think it was like with Headbangers Ball when, because you were not the first host, you were what, third? Were you the third host?
Well, actually, before I started hosting Headbangers Ball, there were
a lot of different
everybody. Downtown Julie Brown, Kelly. You
when
know,
they first start, right? 120 minutes, and then it turned into
everybody hosted Headbang. Kevin Seal was the host of Headbangers Ball.
You know,
so here's a funny story. I'm watching Headbangers Ball in my shitty apartment on Hollywood Boulevard, and Faster Pussycat's on with Kevin Seal, who's like this nerdy dude. You know, he's wearing like white pants and this button-down shirt.
Totally doesn't fit.
Interviewing Tammy, and Tammy goes, I want to give a shout out to my roommate Ricky. Digs hearing his name on MTV. You know, little
isn't that crazy? That's
4
awesome.
years later, I'd be the host of that show.
But when you were hosting that, you turned that into. Whenever I think of Headbangers Ball, I think of you. I don't think of the.
Even if you look on Wikipedia, Headbangers Ball, it says
you.
The most well-known host was Riki Rachtman.
Yeah.
Riki Rachtman was the host of Headbangers
You were
Ball.
the lead singer.
And no matter what I do, you know, in any job, I'm that guy from Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
But when I was doing talk radio in Los Angeles, it was like, no, I'm not the guy in Headbangers Ball. I'm Riki Rachtman, and I do this and do that. And I kind of like people would go up and say, you know, dude, I grew up watching you. And I kind of was like, yeah, well, then. And like, what a fucked up attitude to have. Like now when somebody says I grew up watching you, like I look at that person, I'm like, thank you. You know, even though I hear it
you made a mark.
lot. I hear it a
mark
lot
to a lot of people.
But well, now I hear my mom grew up watching you, but it's still like I'm very, very flattered very, very proud, and more than anything, very, very grateful.
But you're still, listen, I'm telling you, you've got this rock star persona. Now, like, again, we talked about this earlier. You could be old, fat, and gray and being, oh, that's the guy that used to be cool. They're loving you because, like, yeah, dude, that's the guy that was ruling MTV,
his reach,
and you still could do that.
Speaking of his reach from Headbangers Ball, I was watching a documentary called Class Action Park about a park in New Jersey.
God.
And in the middle of it, they cut to a scene of Alice in Chains, and freaking Riki is there interviewing him for Headbangers Ball.
Greatest episode of Headbangers Ball ever, Alice in Chains Water Park, which I've got, and it's in my show.
Really?
I did it on the One Foot in the Gutter show. Were you really at the show?
I was at both. I got photos. Charlotte and LA.
At the One Foot in the Gutter show, I do a breakdown of Alice in Chains at Action Park. Because it was called, it was the world's deadliest amusement park.
Most deadliest, yeah.
So I do a whole big thing about that in my show.
So I have a little game. I want to just put some Sunset Strip artifacts in front of you.
I might not remember what it is.
And just get your first thoughts.
Are you the Carrot Top of podcasts?
Well, I collect this stuff, so
okay,
close.
Cool.
Yeah, close to
this
it.
This is very.
He's the Indiana Jones of pop culture.
That's a good analogy because that's what I'm about to do. I'm just gonna pull some stuff out of my bag.
Do you collect movie collectibles?
Absolutely.
What is your favorite collectible
that I own? Probably a suit from The Office that Michael Scott wore.
That's a big. How'd you get that?
The Christmas episode. I knew the guys that there was a prop house in L.A. and I have the jukebox from 90210. I gave that to my wife as a gift. Prop collecting was only a big thing in the last 10, 15 years. So in the early 2000s, late 90s, they would just give them to you. And they would take all the stuff and take it to like out of the closet thrift stores. You could go in there and find movie screen worn stuff.
It's crazy, right? They don't see the value in it. They just want it out.
They would take it to Santa Monica Boulevard and just donate it to all the thrift stores. Be like, here's the whole thing from Cheers. Here's the wardrobe, and just sell it. And people were buying clothes that were screen worn. But
let's see what you got.
Now I'm excited.
So do you want me to start with a little curveball or just softball?
Throw them at me.
Start somewhere.
Put my old man glasses on.
I'm gonna start y'all with softball. I want to know,
why is it in a trash bag?
And how many am I going to say? I don't remember. I don't know what that is.
what is your go-to meal if you need some help?
Well, it's changed a lot.
It has changed a lot.
Linguine with white clam sauce. Got to stop eating all the damn bread because the bread's so good.
Oh, God.
Let's explain. Let me see. Let's explain what we
This
got here.
This is the rainbow.
We got the Rainbow Bar and Grill menu that Ray lifted.
Well, my friend used to be the manager, so he gave
Who's
it
your
to
friend?
Anthony. Do you know Anthony?
I'm in the Michael Tony days.
I was there during Michael Tony days,
that's
Mario
when
days.
It was really great. I have a lot of
So
memories
clam
from that.
linguine was Ricky's.
Linguine with white clam sauce.
Ricky, what do you think of when I put this in front of you? Your favorite memory of
Kelly Q.
that zine and the whole era?
It was great because there was, at this time, there were two that were battling it out. Oh, no. It was Rock City News, Reuben Blues. There was LA Rock Review, and there was Rock City News. And, God dang. So what happened was, this was Reuben Blues, who really didn't like me.
Oh, really?
And I still think he doesn't like me, but
How impactful was this zine on the scene?
Rock City News and LA Rock Review were the biggest.
Wow.
And these meant everything. They used to come out like probably every Thursday or something, or every 2 weeks. And they were fanzines. There were Rock City News and they were LA Rock Review. And they would talk about the clubs. They talk about the bands that were playing. And this was like the fanzine as opposed to BAM, which was the big one with all the commercials. But these were fanzines that were really good. That LA Rock Review, and I think we didn't get along, me and Reuben Blue. So I'm pretty sure there was a time that he stopped posting anything about the Cathouse. But LA Rock Review, I think that's what it was. Oh wow, Kill for Thrills. Wow,
That's awesome. What year is this one?
There was LA Rock Review, also LA Rock Review. I think was the one that we read the most.
Junkyard, so that had to be, 88 maybe, Ricky? All right, I'm going to put a hotel in front of you and tell me if you remember any stories or debauchery from the era.
Lean in a little bit too, Rick.
Oh my God. I was there recently because I didn't publicize this, but I was the host of the Pornhub Awards this year.
What?
But the Chateau Marmont, what I remember at the Chateau Marmont is Axel was staying there for a long time. I think Axel was living there for like a couple months.
So Axel lived at the chateau.
I believe so. And I remember you look out the window, there's a big Marlboro Man billboard.
Yeah.
And I went up to his place, and I think he played me some of Use Your Illusion at the Chateau Marmont when he was living at the Chateau Marmont. I don't think I've ever done anything debaucherous at the Chateau Marmont.
Wait, so you got a sneak preview of Use Your Illusion?
I think so.
Yeah.
So was Chateau...
I got a sneak preview
of most of it
of November Rain when on Monday. One of the things that we don't talk about, which I don't even talk about in the Cathouse Hollywood podcast, is the Comedy Store. So Monday
what was next?
Oh, look at this!
That was next.
So this is the Comedy Store, which is on
Sunset,
on
right across the
Sunset.
street from the old actual Sunset Strip tattoo.
So that's great. So isn't that funny that I just bring this up? So what people don't talk, I should have let you show it to me first and brought up the memory.
No, that was.
I must have ESPN. So so we'd go to the Comedy Store every Monday night, and it was like free, and you'd sit there, and almost every single Monday night, Kennison would play, and we would sit there, dice, and we would just sit there getting fucked up. And they would just go up there and riff. And we saw all these comics every Monday night. And Kennison was there like every single Monday night. And he was like unlike anything at the time. So that was our Monday nights at the Comedy Store. We never talked about that because that was another thing that we would do. That we'd go Monday nights to the Comedy Store, Tuesday at Cathouse. And there's a lot of stories about that place being haunted.
Before it was the Comedy Store, it was called Ciro's. And there was a lot of like old Hollywood mob connections. But behind the Comedy Store...
I don't believe in ghosts until I see one. I believe there's a possibility, but I've never seen one or felt anything.
I believe in them.
I want
to believe in them.
I want to, but I just haven't seen anything. And I'm willing to... And I've gone to places...
But you're open-minded to it if it does happen.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I believe... Here's what I believe. I'm glad this is long segments of shows. I believe that if you go walk on the grass and you keep on walking on the grass enough times, you're going to make an imprint on the grass.
An energy imprint.
It's an energy that if there's somebody that walks up the stairs, that there might be an imprint. Don't know about it, but I know that the whole thing, I know that I've spent a lot of money to stay in hotels where the room is haunted when all it is like, oh my God, I turned on the hot water and it got really cold. Yeah, that's because the plumbing sucks here. Oh my God, do you hear the buzzing? Yes, because the electric doesn't work. And I mean, if you take a really shitty hotel, you can charge bank in there instead of fixing electric or water.
Just tell them it's haunted.
But me and my wife, we do these, cross-country motorcycle rides. We went to the Stanley Hotel.
I've stayed there.
With the Stanley Hotel, which is supposed that's where The Shining was written and sort of based on that hotel. And so me and Leah decided we're going to walk. This is fun. Me and Leah are walking around the Stanley Hotel in the middle of the night. And you remember The Shining. There's certain parts in The Shining. So we walk up there and we're walking around the corner and we walk in and there's this guy. And he's wearing a black turtleneck with like 60s hair. And he's got like this, he's like a 60s mod guy. And then there's this exact identical twin standing next to him. And they're taking pictures with one of those old time, I got goosebumps right now. Because awesome. Remember in The Shining, there were those two twin girls. Yeah. So I have total goosebumps. So Leah was just like, she was just like, oh, hi, what are you guys doing? And we're talking about it. And then I'm just thinking, oh, that was kind of interesting. She's like, they were twins like The Shining. And then we go to the front desk and they said, I got goosebumps talking about it. And they said, and we said, yeah, it was weird. We saw these twins. And they go, no twins checked in here. And then we asked somebody else that had been walking around and said, we didn't see any twins. And then I was at the bar and the guy that worked there, and I'm like, you ever seen any ghosts here? He's like, no, I haven't, and I've been here hundreds of years. Oh, he's a ghost too, But the twins thing was really weird, really weird.
Yeah, I stayed in the same place, and if you're walking around there, that place creaks, dude. Like it just creaks.
And it's a beautiful hotel.
Yeah. The bar is awesome.
Yeah,
the bar was fantastic.
The reason Mitzi in her last years never came to the Comedy Store, she thought it was haunted by Kennison. She felt Kennison was haunting the place.
I don't know. But, I mean, the nice thing is that's the Comedy Store, but it's like, yeah, every old building you walk in, I'm wondering if it's haunted. I'm wondering if it's haunted. Well, there's people dying every day. How come nobody's haunted at the supermarket or in...
You could go to the Cecil. Have you heard of the Cecil, Chris?
Oh,
yeah, that place that's creepy.
Yeah,
that's creepy. What do you think about the Griddle?
Oh, I live right beside the Griddle. The Griddle...
because there's lines there every morning.
I used to see D. Snider at the Griddle on Sundays. I have a come out and play tattoo on my arm. My dog coming out of the come out and play manhole.
Okay, let me take a picture. I'll send it to him right now.
Oh, dude, you gotta be kidding me. So my dog's coming out of the come out and play because manhole. So I see D. Snider there.
Text it to D.
He's so intimidating as a fan. Every time I see him eating at the Griddle, I'm like, I don't want to mess up my fandom for this guy. I got a tattoo of his band on my arm.
Here's the thing, and I will say this: if anybody ever meets me anywhere and they say, "Oh, I wanted to say hi to you, but I was nervous," you can always come up and say hi to me, and it makes me feel good, except when I'm taking a piss or eating. That's the only time. If I'm sitting there eating, please don't come up and say something. Yeah. Don't bug people when they're eating because that's their time.
No,
you should have an awareness of that anyway, right? That's
or
when people try to, dude, I'm pissing. Oh, Riki Rachtman. Oh, D just texted me back. Noise.
One word review, I'll take it.
But he's also, I mean, D is, don't know him, but he just seems like an extremely intelligent person.
He is.
And would give great advice. The whole, what was it? The whole when he had to go to Congress and at the hearing,
destroyed them,
killed them. Walked in his full outfit and just killed them.
Was the PMRC like thought of as like the enemy on the strip?
It was weird because at first it was like, fuck, if we're gonna put it back. I mean, now everybody swears. Olivia Rodrigo, one of the biggest pop stars, puts a F word in. I'm sure Taylor Swift has an F word in some of her songs. So it's not like shocking anymore. But when the PMRC came out and started banning Body Count and Wasp and Twisted Sister and all this stuff, everybody thought like, oh God, this is really bad. Until they realized, no, please ban my record. Please put the sticker. Because if you've got a sticker on your record, that means it's something bad. And when you're a kid, that's the problem of kids today is now they're probably listening to the bands that their parents likes. When I was listening to, Their Germs or Slayer, if my mom said, oh my God, I love Seasons in the Abyss, I'd be like, no.
Yep, can't listen to that now.
No, I don't want to listen to that.
All right, let's see what else I got in the back. All right, this particular record is in my top 5 of all time, and I just want to ask you if there's a memory you've never shared about the timing or the era that goes around this classic.
Well, the great thing about this record is that this is Faster Pussycat's first record. Tammy's the only one in the band now, and the song
Bathroom, her best cat house in town.
Yeah, well, okay, he's got the song Cat House on it. And does he also have Babylon on that album?
Yeah, Babylon 80.
I did the scratching.
Or not 80.
Babylon, where it goes to like Beastie Boys song where you hear the scratching like, woo, 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 woo. That's me. So I got to do the scratching on that record. And when it says the song "A Bottle in Front of Me" is like a front of a lobotomy. He also says in it, he says, "Hey Ricky, you want to take me to the liquor store to get me another bottle?" Like, I mean, now that I think of that stuff, Tammy did a lot of stuff for me in that record.
So so like if you close your eyes and just went in a time machine to that era, what stands out to you? Is like chaos, hope, crazy, just fun?
If I say shock, it sounds wrong, but it was really weird that Faster Pussycat, like I went to their very first show, and they were not very good.
Where was that at?
It was at the Central.
Really?
Yeah, the very first show, and it was not very good. And then they started playing, and they got better and better and better. And then Fast Pussycat's got a record deal, and the first live band to ever play at the Cat House was Guns N' Roses for their record release party. But after their record release party, then Tammy said, well, we're coming out with that record. We want to do a record release party too and play live at the Cat House. I'm like, you got it. And I remember Brent Muscat saying, Guns N' Roses had 600 people at their record release party. We had 700. We're going to be so much bigger than Guns N' Roses. But it was like surprise, because you got to understand, now we look at this and it's like, oh, all of Riki's friends became rock stars, which also kind of sucked for me because if you remember Entourage and you remember the character that all of his friends were famous and he wasn't, I was that guy. All my friends are rock stars. I'm just the guy that happens to hang out with rock stars. Hung out with them before they were rock stars, hang out with them rock stars. So with Tammy, who was my roommate, and watching, who I also think is a great lyricist, and he's got a record deal. I'm like, oh my God, Faster Pussycat got a record deal? And then I'd see him live, and I'd like, Tammy, like, you guys are really good now. You're really good. And then they got a record deal, and then they got like, I think they were opening up for Guns for a while, and I think I saw them opening up for Motley Crue in LA. And it wasn't really crowded because they were the opening band, but there were still a lot of people there to go see him. And I was like, oh my God, Tammy's band's getting kind of big. And it was, when I say it was shock, it wasn't like they didn't deserve it or they weren't good. I think Faster Pussycat to this day is marketed wrong, and Faster Pussycat I think today should be big. I don't look at Faster Pussycat as an 80s hair band. Faster Pussycat, I think if I managed Faster Pussycat about 15 years ago, I'd have them open up for Avenged Sevenfold. That's what I would have done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, but to me, it was surprise, but glad surprise. It's like, Tammy's like big. He's a rock star, you know?
Oh, no, they still do great in this area.
They're better now than they were because Tammy's sober because he had a heart attack.
You remember LSD from the scene with Stanley?
Yeah, he used to smell.
Yeah, that
and
was the
everybody's
big
like,
thing.
the guy, like, what? Everybody's got their gimmick. Like maybe Riki Rachtman, he's a 60-year-old guy with a mohawk. Oh, Riki Rachtman. It's like, yeah. What is Stanley? Oh, he's the guy that smells. Like his gimmick was he fucking stunk.
He stinks.
And he'd go at the cat house with some kind. He'd always wear these glasses and act kind of like he's weird. And I don't know if that was a gimmick, but he fucking smelled bad. And that was, I mean, you were going to say that, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
That was his gimmick that he smelled.
That was his,
That's not a good
Stupidest, like,
gimmick.
It's like, dude, somebody say like, you know, everybody's saying you smell bad.
that was the urban legend about that band. Nobody cared about the music. The front guy was a maniac, pseudo homeless guy who smelled bad and nobody got it. But the people who got it really got it. I never got it. But
did they have a song Tank? I'm a tank. I think. I don't know.
I never got into the band for that reason. They weren't rock and roll enough. Like the look, like Pussycat was kind of like the gypsy,
junkie
kind
that
of
was
thing.
what
Like
we called it.
Jet Boy, Pussycat,
Guns N'
Junkyard,
Roses,
Guns N'
LA
Roses,
Guns.
LA Guns.
Yep.
That was that era of the strip. But last piece of here we go.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. I love that place. So Toy.
Hold that up.
Toy, God, you're picking like now I'm like, well, maybe I am a little homesick. So Toy was Thai food before Thai food was like cool, and it was open till like 3 a.m. or something. It was like a Thai restaurant, Rainbow, but not a lot of rockers showed up there. But I would go there, and I remember at one point they had a huge picture of me hosting the Headbangers Ball up on the roof, but I never caused it. Like I never got preferential treatment there or anything else. And I remember that, you know, that's where I discovered chicken pad thai. It's the first I ever had pad thai. And because that was the first pad thai I ever had, it was also the best pad thai I ever had. So the Toy was always my place. So if I was in so when I go to LA with Leah, I'm like, well, we got to go to Toy. And she goes there. She goes, it's close. She goes, it's not that great. No, it's so great. Because she's like, you know, she's eating great restaurants. She goes, it's not that great. But Toy, like if I was going to go to LA right now for a week, I would go to Toy. I'd go to Toy way before I'd go to the Rainbow. But just some like dingy little Thai food that was open late, pink neon line, not far from one of the guitar centers.
It's right up street from Rock and Ralph's. There used to be the Rock and Roll Denny's that is now called like Amore or something like that.
Stupid.
But
God, we caused a lot of trouble. So all these the guys that I hung out with, the Cathouse alumni, one night they're like, we're all going to go to Denny's. And I'm like, I got to get up early and audition for MTV. And they're like, okay, well, we're all going to go out. So they all went out there and got in a massive fight. I mean, people getting thrown through the pie counter. My friends, everybody got like, I would have been, because I'm not a tough guy. I was around fights, but I'm not a tough guy. I would have probably had my ass kicked. But I remember all my friends were fighting, and all the crowd at the Rock&Roll Denny's. And then one guy goes to the van and grabs a golf club.
Oh
right?
my God.
And do you remember the band Four Horsemen?
Of course I do.
And Frank Starr was the singer of Four Horsemen, R.I.P., wonderful person. And Frank Starr saw the alumni, and he was kind of alumni, and he goes after the guy with the golf club. And like in the scene in like 86, I think the two people that you didn't ever fuck with in Hollywood were Axl or Frank Starr, because they will kick your ass. That's what I remember. Like both those guys, like they were they're legit. Like anybody Axel's short fuse. But anybody that tells you they're a bad boy is not a bad boy. We're bad boys. You're fucking stupid. You know? I mean, they were bad boys. I mean, I can never stop praising Guns N' Roses, because not only are they the freaking greatest, but they were legit. Mm-hmm. They're so legit. You know
that, talking about especially Guns N' Roses, and there's other bands too, but that will 50 years from now you're still going to be listening to Guns N' Roses. They're going to be like the Rolling Stones.
They are,
and there's a lot of music that came out of that fucking era that will be like that. You're just going to keep listening to these guys.
I remember when Appetite for Destruction entered the top 40, and I said, "Dude, you're a top 40 band now," not knowing it'd be number one for a gajillion years. But going to a sporting event and they played Welcome to the Jungle, and I was like, they're playing, like, it's still weird for me, and it's played at every sport, it's played at everything.
Today, they'll play it
and
today.
It's just still like weird. Like I have to say, like, wow, like this is GNR.
And you've got kids that are 10 years old that are listening to Guns N' Roses.
Now think about this: bands like Guns N' Roses were 40 years ago. Now, if I was at the Cathouse and I'm listening to bands that are 40 years ago, I'm not talking Elvis Presley. No. I'm talking fucking Glenn Miller. That was the music that was on in the 40s. So if you want to talk about a generation gap, like in the 80s, I was a rockabilly cat. So in the 80s, you didn't listen to music by Eddie Cochran, Gene Vincent, which is only 30 years away. So still,
that's my point that I'm saying.
It's crazy.
It transcends. This is music that they should have put up on Voyager. The next Voyager satellite to go, they put Rolling Stones on the first Voyager satellite. They would put GNR on now.
You put Master of Puppets, no one's going to fuck with us.
There you go. Yes. Leave that planet alone.
When you were around that area and you were there when it was happening, and just say to yourself, I'm a part of something pretty special with this whole thing.
How could you know?
No. Like until recently.
Really?
Like you have to understand, yes, we were all part of a magical scene. A scene that will never, ever be duplicated, that people can't possibly imagine what the 80s were really like. And it wasn't nothing but a good time. It was really dark for a lot of us at times. If only somebody would come out with something that talked about that. Okay, anyways. Now you have to understand that was the way we lived. So while people are saying, oh my God, you were watching Guns N' Roses play the small clubs, how crazy it was. It was like, if you go to a local bar and you see your friends, you're like, this is just how you live. I mean, right. Yes, to say sex and drugs, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that's just how we lived, and I'm kind of not numb, but and I was the guy that never got girls in high school.
And now you're getting.
I don't want to sound cocky, but it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. And wow. But that was my life. Like when people say, you created the Cathouse and that was such an important part of you. I was like, no, I was just kind of lucky to be right place, right time. And I was talking to Ryan Roxy. I was interviewing Ryan Roxy for my Patreon, and he was saying, who knows, if there wasn't a Cathouse, would there be Guns N' Roses? Or I mean, of course there would, but it's still like to hear that people remember what I did almost 40 years ago is just crazy, because back then we didn't know Guns N' Roses would be one of the biggest rock and roll bands in the world. We never imagined that. And every time I see Guns N' Roses today, I still have to sit back and say, like, Look at Slash. Slash is like one of the greatest guitarists in rock and roll. You know, it's Slash. Slash that couldn't form a sentence. You know, it's really great. And if I could go back in time, I would take pictures. I would write down things.
Right.
And I would stop and say, like, look at what we're in. And that's what we don't do.
Yeah.
We don't know when we're in this incredible time. If something incredible happens to me now, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. You know, this is really an incredible moment.
You're more aware of it now.
Yeah.
Being older.
Yeah. I think so. I say a thing in my show that some people said my show is like, oh, it's like a motivational speech, which I think it is but I never promote it like that. But I say at the end of the show, you never know when you're going to have the best time of your life, because in the 2000s, when I lost everything, I was always thinking, God, it'll never be like it was. And then even, you know, up until about 10 years ago, I used to sit back and say, like, man, nothing will ever be like it was in the 80s. And it's kind of sad to think, like, what if the best time of your life already happened? But I never knew, like, doing One Foot in the Gutter and with my marriage and everything like that, it's the best time of my life. And this is at a time when suicide was an option, when realizing that you're never going to be anything anymore, that you're has-been, that you got to figure out, and I don't have really a trade. And now I'm having the best time of my life. You know, I really, really am. So you never know. You know, you never know where things are going to lead. Just, you know, I hate to just say the obvious, don't give up, but just work your fucking ass off. Just work and hustle and understand that everything you do in life is an audition. Like, yes, I had to drive like an hour to get here and it's hanging with you guys, but we never know. We might end up working on something together. We don't know. And I'm also here because I like you guys and I'm having a good time. But you never know. That's why people sometimes miss opportunities. And it might be you're working at a coffee shop and you're just like, fuck, phone it in. Don't phone it in. If you're working at a coffee shop, be a best damn coffee shop. You know, when I was broke in 2000, fucking broke, power wasn't turned off, freezing cold in an apartment, and I got a job as a used car salesman, I decided one day I'm going to own a dealership. So I worked my ass off trying to promote myself, and sure enough, I didn't make shit still.
And you have to be a risk taker in a sense to make things happen. And sometimes it's not always going to work out. You are going to fail, but you have to realize that can't keep you down.
I used to be so incredibly jealous, this is the first time admitting this, so incredibly jealous of Eddie Trunk. Even though him and I could not be more different. We are so different. But I was so jealous of Eddie because Eddie is emceeing every concert and every show. Eddie is the MC. And I'd be like, why don't I get to host anything? Why don't I host anything? And Leah's like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm like, okay, but I wish I could be asked. And I still sometimes am like, why am I not hosting this? Why am I not hosting that? And especially because, like, you know, he's in his 50s. It's not like he's some young kid. But, you know, and then I started doing spoken word and started doing One Foot in the Gutter. And I'm like, oh no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm glad that those things that I wanted so bad didn't happen. You know, I was supposed to be the host of Ink Master. And they told me book off. They told me to book off the time that I'm going to be hosting Ink Master. They said, you are the host of Ink Master. And then I didn't get a call from them for 3 weeks. And then they called and they said, okay, it's between you and Dave Navarro, which is something I've heard several times. And I think it's Dave Navarro 3, Ricky 0. And Dave Navarro always got the jobs. But if I would have hosted Ink Master, I would have met my wife because she was on season 1 of Ink Master. But you don't try to sleep with the contestants and you don't try to do that. And I would have been the cocky TV host. And so thank God I didn't get that job, which I thought was the greatest thing in the world. And I didn't get it. And then 15 years later, so you never know which direction things are going to lead you. You never know.
Yeah.
Somebody cuts you off, you're late 15 minutes. Maybe you were supposed to be 15 minutes for late. I don't know. I don't think that answered your question at all, did it? Did I just go off?
No,
I love that. That's why
you know who that's like? You know who that's like? David Lee Roth.
Oh, dude.
David Lee Roth, you interview David Lee Roth, and you're like, David Lee Roth, tell me what it's like playing in Paris. Well, let me tell you something. I can't do an imitation. It's like, well, let me tell you something. It is incredible when you're up on stage and you're drinking the Jack, and then you get into that limousine, and you know your jacuzzi is had it, and you got this, and I'm like, no, that wasn't what I asked you. You know?
How many times have you, like, who are some of the guys like that you've interviewed that were, I know what I'm going to get with David Lee Roth.
I know Dave Mustaine's going to give me shit. I know Dave Mustaine is going to try to break me down as much as he can. And the other thing that I learned is sometimes interviewing your friends isn't good.
Not a good idea.
It's not great. And that was tough for me when I'm having to interview Tammy or Mike Muir or Gilby or any of these people, because they're not the best interviews. You know, instead, when you're interviewing people, you know, so there's certain people, and there was, you know, I used to hate CeCe DeVille. Now he's fine. But there were certain people, you know, that's why that whole Nirvana thing, when I interviewed Kurt Cobain, that everybody's seen it a billion times, I was just bummed because he didn't really want to be on Headbangers Ball. And I'm like, there's a lot of bands that really want to be on Headbangers Ball, and you don't even want to be here? Fucking go home.
Yeah.
And I loved Nirvana at that point. So I was just like, you know, if you don't want to get interviewed, don't get interviewed. I like to have conversations like we're doing now. That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
And when I watch old episodes of the Headbangers Ball, I did not do that. I read stuff off a card, and I was terrible.
Well, it was a little crazier, wasn't it? It was totally not. Well, how scripted was it? It was pretty much just off the wall.
Well, they would write down the questions to ask. They would sort of tell me what to say to open it and do my hair up and do this. But you got to understand, everybody goes, look at Ricky, he's so nervous. It's like, oh my God, I've never been on TV before. Imagine your first time ever being on television. You're the host of Headbangers Ball.
But what was it about you that why do you stick and the other guys when it first starts don't? It's not the notoriety of Headbangers Ball, is Riki Rachtman.
Authenticity.
That's okay. I can't say that, but you can.
Truth.
Carol Donovan, who was the producer of Headbangers Ball, and she was talking, I don't remember who it was she was talking to, but she goes, but Ricky was real. Even though there's a lot of people that hated me because I didn't play their genre of music enough, which people always did take out on me personally. But it was like, I was part of the scene. I really was. It wasn't like I was time to put on a leather jacket and talk about Megadeth.
The other hosts were almost too TV polished.
It's like, yeah, now I'm going to interview Megadeth, which is good because last week I was at the Megadeth show, and here's Dave Mustaine at the Cathouse, you know? So, and after a while, like...
You were embedded.
Right now, like, because of MTV and because of all the talk radio show, I did a lot of talk radio. I think I'm really good at what I do now because I don't ever prepare. And I did the same thing when I was working in NASCAR, is I never really prepared because I don't think people want to hear, you know, how'd you get your name? I think people want to know, they're more curious and like, you know, hey, what did you dress up as for Halloween or stuff like that. And pretty soon I kind of had that apathetic, like, let's just be goofy. I mean, you know, people complain like, oh yeah, Ricky cut his hair. People don't remember when my hair was white. People don't remember when my hair was blue. And one day I said, for the fuck of it, I wore a shirt and tie on Headbangers Ball. I just didn't care. And, you know, people always say like, you know, and we accept everybody. Well, you sure didn't when I cut my hair. I got so much shit for that. But I've always said, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. You know, do you think anybody said a mohawk was a good idea? And I did it just on a whim. And now, even though my hair is really jacked up right now, I've always kind of done things the way I've done things, you know? I did a David Lee Roth and didn't answer your question. I just kind of...
I was looking for the end point there. I'm like, okay, there's my logo right there. Okay.
Now, David Lee Roth can come up with a analogy that will blow your mind just right off the top of his head. He'd be like, you know, you take the A and the B and you put them in the C and you're at the beach and all of a sudden you got a coconut and a pineapple and it's party time.
Well, you gotta watch. And I'll be posting this on my Patreon. David Lee Roth on Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan is talking to Dave about the old days. And David Lee Roth is talking about playing in Van Nuys in this not great neighborhood, which is where I grew up. And at a store called the Rock Corporation.
It went past a place called the Rock Corporation. There's a fellow, Riki Rachtman, who was a VJ for many years with Headbangers Ball.
I remember that guy.
Yeah. Well, his father owned the bar at the time, okay, and his mother, and they were both in a bike club.
Now, here's the true story, okay? I lived with my mom and my stepdad. My mom was a school teacher. Stepdad was a principal. I was a horrendous student, getting all Fs and getting suspended. And we lived in the valley. And on Van Nuys Boulevard, way back in the day, it was cruise night. Everybody would bring their lowriders and their hot rods, and we used to just sit on the street on Wednesday night as kids. And I remember riding my bicycle by this club, the Rock Corporation, and there was a dead biker face down. And I went, whoa. And that was the first time I saw a dead body. Was in front of the Rock Corporation in Van Nuys. That's the story. David Lee Roth says, well, let me tell you something. When Van Halen got their start, it was at a place called the Rock Corporation. You know Riki Rachtman, the guy from MTV? Yeah. Well, his parents are bikers, and they owned a biker bar. And so David Lee Roth was telling the story about this notorious biker bar owned by my parents. I told you, my parents are not bikers. And the Rock Corporation, I just rode my bicycle by it and saw a dead body. But that's a story that I probably shouldn't have told you the truth, because it's much cooler saying that Riki's parents are bikers and they own a biker gang, bike club.
If Roth
and that was
said
what
it.
David Lee Roth said on Joe Rogan. And I was like, I'm like, what?
Who killed the biker?
But the thing is nobody who watched that did not believe David. He could tell you a story that's the most untrue story, and you think it's the gospel because he's so confident.
Well,
in
he's
his
so fast
storytelling.
with it too. Yeah.
Sometimes the fiction's better than the truth. I think for me, it's not. The truth has always been better. But in that case, the fiction's better than the truth. Like, I probably should never say it. I should probably just keep on playing that. And so everybody, because I am a biker, and everybody to say like, oh yeah, Riki's parents were also bikers. They weren't.
Well, we're getting close to wrap it up, and I want to talk about your sister. She is music supervisor on on Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs.
She's working on some projects now that are huge that I don't know if I'm allowed to say or not.
Well, with Tarantino, since Tarantino's such, like he says when he writes these
she
things.
Really, with Reservoir Dogs, I mean, you look at Pulp Fiction, and Karen's name's like the third credit that comes up. And, I spent many, many years not talking to my sister. Many years. And now we're actually working together on a project, and I talk to my sister all the time. But I believe, that, she made the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, which influenced so much stuff.
That's awesome, though. When I saw it on there,
because there were so many, there were certain songs that Quentin said, hey, what about this song? And then she'd go get the licensing for it. But there are certain songs that were just like random songs, Stuck in the Middle with You is pretty good, but Dick Dale and I don't remember all the other songs. Girl Would Be a Woman Soon. All these songs that were put in the soundtracks. Yeah. Like there's some. Now I think we know how important music is to TV and soundtracks. I just finished watching Peaky Blinders.
Yes,
so good.
Oh,
Me
my
too.
God,
Because
dude.
of Peaky Blinders, I got into the band The Idols.
Yeah.
And I started listening to Idols just because they played them so much in Peaky Blinders.
Do you have a favorite Tarantino film?
Interestingly enough, the first time I saw Pulp Fiction, I didn't like it at all.
Really?
Yeah. Times have changed. I really like Pulp Fiction.
Me too. That's my favorite.
Really like Pulp Fiction because
Number one.
there's few movies out there that it's just classic moment after. There isn't a filler like, oh, this is leading up to this scene. It's
Contrived.
like everything. It's like every single scene is a highlight in Pulp Fiction. Everything. You think about just everything. Like there's something so unbelievable about Pulp Fiction, but there's also things because every personality is so completely unique from one another that it's almost believable. Like to me, if I'm going to watch TV show or movie, what I need is characters. I need characters like, we started watching Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone, but there's just too many things in the starting that's unbelievable. Even in my fantasy, because I love comic books and I love horror, I need some believability in the most ridiculous, things like the most poignant, I've never used that word before, film, the most important film that everybody needs to watch that people don't realize is exactly what we are becoming is...
Idiocracy.
No. Wall-E.
Oh, yes, 100% agree
People
with that.
do not understand how damn accurate that film is. And people write off Pixar, write off the... I never do. I love those movies.
No, they nailed it.
But Wall-E
Big, fat,
is
and lazy.
exactly how we are becoming.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
In movies in general, because everybody talks to you about music, if you had somebody held you down and say top 3, top 5, what are your go-to classic movies?
Okay. Now, I already told you one off camera, and I have to say something about it when I say it. I think the greatest movie ever made was Jaws. And the reason that I say that is Jaws absolutely changed everybody's life. To me, being a kid and being 100%. Scared shitless to be in a swimming pool. But I love Jaws, but I also don't like what that movie did to sharks, because sharks are not vicious killers that are looking for humans. You know, if they eat a human, sometimes it's by accident. So Jaws would be one. I really loved Swingers when it came out.
Oh,
I loved Swingers, which I showed Leah Swingers, and she was like, "It's okay." And I'm like, "Oh, you know, I think that really might be a guy's movie."
The Answer Machine is one of the best.
So painful,
scenes.
so painful to watch, and so damn accurate. So painful.
It's
which
beautiful.
I just learned. Thank God.
Telling the girls that they just picked up all about his ex-girlfriend in the camper trying to get laid. Vince Vaughn's trying to get laid. He's telling her about his ex-girlfriend.
And a scene that was just so painful, and talking about your ex-girlfriend and the truth about Vegas, because Vegas has always been thought like, you go to Vegas, you're gonna get laid. There's so many girls. You go in this like, yeah, this really is. And even when the Hard Rock was at its peak, it was all old people at the Hard Rock too.
Oh yeah, that's where I used to stay, was at the Hard Rock. I like you. I just love that lifestyle, that look, that grit of Vegas. You know,
old Vegas was fantastic. We used to play at a club right beside the Palms called Pinks or Pinkies. I can't remember what the name of it was exactly, but you could get up in the morning, stay at a hotel for $20, get up in the morning, eat a buffet for $3. And the cowboy guy was on Fremont doing his thing. Everybody, now it's like, last time I went, it was like Disneyland. You couldn't even touch a buffet for less than $50.
No. Downtown Vegas is the ticket. If there was gonna be a Cathouse bar opening, probably it would be down there. There has been discussions. Nothing's broken ground, but my friend is opening up a hotel casino,
and they could use a
bar. Like if the Cathouse ever opens up, it'd be a bar. It'd be a bar that plays great music. It wouldn't be a live venue. I have no desire to do a live venue. There's some live venues that open up in LA, and everybody's like, "Hey, you're gonna do it?" I don't want to open up a live venue. You know, the reason that I opened up a rock and roll dance club is I wanted people to go there and then go there the next week and then go next week. And then when you have a band playing and it's really great, everybody's like, great. Hey, you want to go to the Cathouse? Who's playing? Oh, nobody's playing. Nah. You know, when the Cathouse was supposed to be dance club, so it'd be crowded every single week. Yeah. And then damn Guns N' Roses had to play the Cathouse, and then it all went to hell.
History.
It's a venue. And the good thing is that you're at that again, I come back to the era that this was all happening. It's still relevant. It's still cool. It's still fucking cool. So
people have said in a project that we're working on now, people have said that Ricky was kind of like the Forrest Gump because you were always there.
That's great.
Well, okay, well, wait. I would like to think that they said that because I just always happened to be a part of something that was pretty important. I would like to think that it might be because I'm slow. I'm not really sure, but I'd like to think. But it's like, you know, I was on Junior's pit crew the day Dale Earnhardt died. You know, I'm standing next to Robin Zander when he finds out he's going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, of course, the Guns N' Roses stuff. It's like so much stuff in my life. I was right place, right time, and that might have helped me do certain things. You know, with whatever it was.
But don't you also have to have the ambition to make that into something? I don't think you give yourself enough credit. Or maybe
you have to always put yourself out there, you know, whether it's, you know, whatever it is. Now I'm at a point in my career now that I'm very picky. I know you wouldn't think it because I did your show, but I'm actually very picky on what I do. And, you know, there's a money factor and there's a fun factor. And when the fun factor goes away, the money better be way up there. And I will give you an example. TGI Fridays, the food chain, said we're doing a contest for the best bartender, the most flair bartender. Will you come down and host it? I go, I don't want to come down. They go, look, just come down to Vegas, fly in one day, do it. We'll give you $10,000 and we'll fly it back. I go, okay.
Oh, yeah,
And I did it. There was no fun. Pornhub Awards was really a fun gig, and that was a great gig. But like, there's gigs that I get offered, and it doesn't make sense, and I turn down gigs all the time. And there's also things that I've done, you know, because I think maybe this is going to help me get into the motorcycle industry or whatever. But now I'm to the point that I'm very, very particular on the things that I do. And after Nothing But a Good Time, I don't know how many of those shows I'm going to be on, because it's the same stuff. Yeah. I think the specials, the TV, Nothing But a Good Time was pretty good. But I think all the other ones that they do, that I've been on a lot of them on Paramount Plus, are fucking shit. They're just shit. And
I was going to ask you how you thought the story went.
I was a cartoon.
You did. You were a cartoon. That's
you
right.
were a cartoon.
Yeah.
I was kind of neat.
I was surprised that you were only in the first episode, like half a soundbite.
So was I. I was like, you guys brought like 13 people to my house, you know, set up my entire house to shoot, and I'm in and then when I see Cathouse, I'm like, all right. And you know what? And Cathouse has, as you've heard through these shows, it really was this nasty sex, drugs, rock and roll place where people could do whatever they want. But all these shows keep on feeding into that's what it was. Yeah. And I'm like, if that's the reputation that I have, that this is a place where guys were having sex with girls and all these rock stars would walk around and nobody would get bugged and it was dangerous. If that's the reputation the Cathouse has, that's pretty damn accurate, and I'll take it. And that's what keeps us still notorious.
I actually thought they did the Cathouse. That was in the second episode. They did more on the Cathouse, I think, in the first one. Or it was
more on me. Except
Yes.
there's a couple things.
Yep.
Never mentioned Faster Pussycat. Not once was the word Headbangers Ball mentioned.
Are you sure? Really? I didn't know.
Which is
that.
fine.
Okay.
And some people say, well, how can you not mention Def Leppard? How can you not? Because it wasn't about that. That wasn't what it was about.
Yeah.
And I'm more proud of Cathouse than I am Headbangers Ball. Even though most people know me from Headbangers Ball, I'm more proud that now, you know, at CathouseHollywood.com, first plug, we've got Cathouse shirts and Headbangers Ball shirts. And I'm glad that people buy more Cathouse shirts and Headbangers Ball shirts.
I'm getting one. All right, let's plug some stuff. Let's get you out of here. Let's plug some stuff. What you got going on?
Patreon, which is where all that Headbangers Ball, Cathouse, interviews, and I'm doing new content, is Patreon, patreon.com/Riki Rachtman. It's my Patreon. I just started this yesterday, so I'm brand new to that whole thing. And everything, just pretty much just go to CathouseHollywood.com. There's the Cathouse Hollywood podcast. I'm on social media. I'm not on X anymore. And one of the other reasons that I stopped posting, that I started Patreon, is I can't deal with these people anymore.
It's a lot of platforms, man.
It's like
there's too many.
No, it's not. It's the people. It's like, oh, dude, you know, it's talking shit. It's like, you know, you fat, dumb fuck that has a shitty job, not putting down people that are overweight, that are struggling with their job, not putting those down. But for those fuckers that are sitting here putting me down and saying, oh, you fucking has been, you fucking this. I'm like, dude, I was just telling you how much I really like this Iron Maiden show, you know, and they say that. I'm like, first of all, I'm still working in the thing. And if you want to see, I'm some has-been in my nice house with my nice car and my killer wife. It's like, say whatever you want, brother, because you would shoot your mother in the back to have half the life that I've had. But that's, I can't, it's such, and then people started attacking the people that were leaving comments on my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's a cesspool of just negativity that can happen in there. And it's terrible.
You also have a tattoo parlor with your wife,
No, I don't have any part of that. That is 100% my wife. She opened up her own tattoo art studio in Mooresville, North Carolina, and it's called Leah Vendetta, which is her name, not Leah Rachtman. I'll probably change my name to Riki Vendetta.
You do have a vendetta against someone.
But I'm very proud of her. And it's not like a regular tattoo parlor. It's more like an art studio. And when you walk in there, you're the only person in the place. And it's a nice situation. She just opened that up. And she doesn't even own color. Like if you go in there and go, I want a red, can't do it. She only does black and gray because that's what she's always been the best of. Facebook, she's got like 500,000 followers.
Okay,
and
cool.
She's on Instagram. And yeah, her Instagram, you can see some of her work. And she's rad. She puts up with me.
Could you imagine a Cathouse cruise? Has that ever been talked about?
I want to do it. I want to do a Cathouse cruise. I'm doing the Headbangers Boat, which Sixth Man is, I did the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I liked the people on the boat. I liked some of the bands that were there, but it was just fucking the guy that, never mind. But the Headbangers Boat was really fun, but I want to do a Cathouse cruise. That if I did a Cathouse cruise, it would have the typical 80s bands, but I'd bring on some comics. I'd do a Q&A after we watch the metal years. I would do all these fun things. Yeah. And I want to do, if you want to see doing a Cathouse cruise, just write to Sixth Man, because they're the ones that do the best rock cruises, period. And isn't it crazy that like on the Headbangers Boat, one of the things I do is me and Leah host bingo. I do host a karaoke. I also do my stand-up show. And I'm doing Q&As with 3 members of Lamb of God, because that's what I do. So you set up 2 chairs and you just talk for an hour.
That's awesome.
And I do that kind of stuff on the boat. And I have a great time. But it's funny, like the cruise was always the thing that old people did. Like nobody wanted to go on cruises. And now everybody wants to go on the cruises. And I just got back from an Alaska cruise and I had a freaking riot. But the themed cruises, it's like, I think the rock cruises saved the cruise industry. Because
they did,
it's pretty cool to go on, like when I go on the Headbangers Boat and I'm walking through the hallway to my room and Hatebreed is blasting through as you're walking.
Is it the whole boat? Is it the whole boat?
Oh yeah, it's a whole
boat.
boat that sold out the day it went on sale. And the Headbangers Boat is heavy. It's like I went to the Headbangers Boat and there's all these like really cool bands, and then there might be a band that I've never seen before, so I'll go check them out. And everybody is a metalhead. And it's awesome. And, I went in there thinking, who's going to watch my show? And my spoken word show did really well there. And I can't wait to be on it again, which I leave on Halloween.
Dude, a Cathouse cruise, what happens on the cruise stays on the cruise. Because that's the myth of the Cathouse, was that it was like a crazy, safe, edgy environment.
But some of the people that would go are a little bit older. And it was funny
fun.
that when I've done Cathouse things and, I dress like I dress, but there's still some people that dress like if and no shame on if you like tucking your boots in and wearing a fringe jacket, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Keep supporting. But sometimes when you see, I'm not going to get myself into trouble.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Sometimes you got to let it go or evolve into something a little bit more, evolve your look.
No,
but there's something also like at first I say, you know what, maybe some of these 60-year-old women shouldn't be wearing these really short skirts. And then there's a side of me, it's like, no, you girls rock it and have fun like you did in 1986 and wear the same stuff and go crazy.
That's why it would work. That right there, that's why that cruise would work.
All right, Riki, thank you so much, brother.
Dude, I had so much fun.
I'm so happy for doing this. Thank you.